All right, I am here with Sujan Patel, the co-founder of Mailshake and Ram Ventures. So great to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Awesome. So you're the founder of Mailshake. You have a number of SaaS companies that you've built and that you manage. But I'd love to hear about your journey and what got you onto the track of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just don't like when people tell me what to do. I just don't listen. I genuinely want to do the opposite of that, right? So a little bit it's in my DNA. Like my mom's like an entrepreneur. Like my whole mom's side like hustles to make money. Hustles being like they always are trying to achieve more. So, anyways, that's like probably encoded somewhere, right, in my brain. But really, it was in probably 2008, 2009, when financial crisis, when I really became an entrepreneur. I think I was a entrepreneur. I had some side hustle stuff, but when I had to lay off my whole team, and like the big boss came in the morning of with like a stack of pamphlets of like, okay, you're gonna join me, and you're just gonna sit there because you're their manager, and we're gonna lay people off, and try not to fuck it up, right? Like HR person's there. So, anyways, we went through like a series of like 9 or 10 layoffs, and it was a bad time and all that stuff. But I was like, I never want to be on the employee side of this ever again. It sucks and it's painful. And, unfortunately, just recently, we did the same thing at one of my companies, bad timing, what have you. But one of it really brought back a lot of lessons of like how to do it in the right way. What's like a tactful way and helpful? How do we like get people to the other side? But anyways, so I never want to do that again. So yeah, I was like, what do I do to be on the other end of this economics? And I also hit I think I hit like a ceiling, like I was making like almost like 200K, no degree when I was like 23. And I'm like, well, what else? How do I like make 5X this? And it really became clear that you can't make this. Well, it's unlikely, very difficult, and most careers don't get that high in pay. And I was 23. I was like, well, is this it? Like, am I just gonna like coast for the rest of my life, or like, how do I make double this? And it was just not an easy path.
Yeah. So I have a very similar story, actually. So, I worked in big tech for the first half of my career, basically. And, it was basically my dad telling me, he was a professor and kind of grew up during the, post depression, and was like, you got to get a job. You need job security. Don't take risk, pay your bills, that sort of thing. And so for many years, I was working at these big tech companies, kind of bored, making a decent living. And when the financial crisis happened, luckily I didn't get laid off, but a lot of people in my company that had been there for like 15, 20 years were lifers basically, and they were getting laid off. And that like broke this illusion that I had that working at a big company equaled job security.
Mm-hmm.
It was an illusion, right? And in fact, in a lot of ways, it might even be less secure because you're just a number, or you're just a part of an appendage that the company can just chop off at any time. So right during that time, I went and got my MBA in entrepreneurship. I started my consulting business on the side, and that led into, founding companies and starting my own coaching business eventually.
Nice.
But yeah, so for kind of the same reason one was I wanted to be kind of master my own destiny. But then two is I didn't want my meals to come from one place. I didn't want to be completely dependent on one boss or one company for my entire livelihood. And so I wanted to be able to basically diversify. And so now, I work with a dozen different companies, and most of them are doing great. But when some of them aren't doing well and we have to part ways, it's say, okay, you know what? I'm here when you're ready, when you want to come back, or when you need me again. But then there's always greener pastures to go after. So,
yeah, absolutely. I like that. I also like the diversification of business, and that's also why I have 4 businesses.
yeah,
Because you know how much risk I can take. Like it's unlikely that I'm going to mess up all 4 of them, right? Or like all 4 are going to go under. So I like that diversification. I also really get bored. I don't know if that's a problem with you. I like problems, and I think like people can't move as fast as I can move in my brain and talk about stuff and whatever. So I'm like, let's go solve this problem. boom. And then I go like, and then maybe I'm working with a marketing person. They got 3 months to execute. And then by the time they're done, I've got bandwidth to then look at that and whatever. But in those 3 months, I'm going and doing like 5 or 10 other things.
Yeah. Not to discount it, right? I kind of say the same thing, like, oh, I get bored if I'm doing the same thing for too long. But I see it as a strength, which is I crave the variety of experience, but that also gives me perspective, right? So I don't get the tunnel vision just working on one thing all the time. Where in fact, it's actually a benefit that a lot of my coaching clients, explicitly value. They tell me they just love being able to ask me, hey, I'm having this problem. Like, what are you seeing? Right? What, with a dozen other companies that you're working with, what patterns are you seeing, or what are other people doing? And so it's something that, like, I don't have to have all the answers. I can just be like, well, here's the pattern that I'm seeing. Right. And by having that breadth of experience, I'm able to make better decisions because I have more data points to look at.
Yeah. Say I get a lot of value from, we'll go test a marketing idea or a product idea or like some sort of funnel, like, we'll optimize some pricing and then it works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, we're like, not going to try it on these other companies. It doesn't work. Right. But if it does work, we have 4x to leverage on it. Right. So, it's awesome. I mean, not always does it apply to every single thing, right? Some of them are different models, but although I have multiple businesses, we are B2B SaaS, mostly SMB, self-service. Like there's like a category, like I can niche it down to like one specific company I'm looking for, but yeah. And then, I spend a lot of my day looking at new businesses to buy, and that helps kind of sharpen my pencil on just new ideas, like how to run a proper business and, growth opportunities.
That's interesting too, because, especially in kind of the growth stages, you're always looking for repeatable success. And sometimes you get hooked on like a fluke and you think, oh, well, that worked, let me try it again. But now you just have more at bats and you can really tell what's working and you can battle test your ideas and your systems and things like that. So that's actually really great.
Yeah,
so
it helps
are all
a lot.
your businesses kind of in a similar theme or in a similar space, or are they kind of diverse?
So we've got 4 in the email space, but very different customer, I'd say. 3 in the email space and then 1 in HR tech. We're not intending to be in one specific vertical, so we're in email heavily, but Mailshake is like outbound targeting sales reps, and like sales teams are really our customer. We got Voila Norbert, which is more of like recruiting, a little bit of email marketing folks that like, when you get too many bounces from your email marketing provider, you got to verify your emails, you run it through that. So some similarities, but not really. I did not expect to get into the email space, but every time we looked at a business, I look at like 50 to 75 businesses a month of potential acquisitions. I buy 1, maybe 2 a year. Some of them are tuck-ins to existing companies, but like email is an area we know really well. So we just kind of like, well, we know the space. That is something that we would highly rate. I have a kind of a internal scorecard when I look at companies, and one of them is like, well, how familiar are we with the space, right? And it's like 1 to 5 rating on every one of these like 25 things, and so it's like literally mathematically what highest score wins, and then like a gut check.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So did you? So is Mailshake kind of your primary or your lead company, or are they all? Or do you love all your babies the same?
I don't really have emotional attachments to stuff. It helps me have a better operating principles and practice. If I love, so Mailshake is one we started. It was the more painful one to get off the ground. It is probably the largest one in our portfolio, but I mean, I like and dislike all the businesses the same. And I say that I try not to have an emotional. I think it's a weakness, maybe not today, but like it impacts your decision making when you should be looking at the facts, right? So I love Mailshake. I started it, but it doesn't change the P&L. It doesn't change our growth rate. It doesn't change our churn. The business is the business, and if I'm not adding value, then me loving it doesn't impact the business in any way besides maybe making the wrong decisions.
That's interesting. So yeah, that's contrary to, I think, kind of the common founder story where they're just incredibly driven by passion, almost to a state of delusion, right?
Yeah.
Where they're sticking with it and they're pushing through when times are tough, when everyone's telling them no and whatnot. But you're taking a much more pragmatic approach to things. What do you think are the trade-offs there?
Well, I mean, I think I still, when there's a problem or things to push through, I'm still doing that, right? It doesn't, just because I don't have the emotion to it doesn't mean I don't have the desire to grow a business. I think those are two different things. I get happy when something performs, but it could be my bank account, it could be a business, it could be a new business we buy next year. I'm truly motivated by growth. Like, it just makes me happy to see any monetary number go up and any traffic number go up, number of customers, like that's just fun. The actual business itself could be anything. I do like solving anything B2B. I really don't like B2C. I'm not a big consumer guy. Generally, people kind of piss me off. As in, like, think about, like, you go buy something from Amazon. Like, when you go return it, like, you're generally like triggered. Like, this thing didn't work the way it did. What the hell? Like, I'm pissed, right? Like, that happens in B2B, but it's like a lot more rational, a little bit more rational thinking. Maybe not a lot more, but a little bit more. Anyways, yeah. So, so I get, so my MO is to grow businesses, and I don't like it. I get pissed and angry and, all these emotions when they don't, right? And so I'm trying to, like, work on that. But I'm motivated. If something happens, I'm coming out of bed or doing whatever. In fact, these days we're about 70 people. I don't really get out of bed for anything. Well, also, if there's something to get out of bed for, it's typically development related, which I have zero value to contribute to.
Meaning, if there's a problem, if there's something,
I can't do anything about it. Yeah. I can help just manage the problem, but, like, a lot of times, like, when you have an emergency, like, you just got to go do the work, right?
You're buying pizza for the dev team, right?
Yeah. And then I just give them the credit card to go buy pizza.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. No, I mean, I appreciate that because, so again, I got my MBA, and I'm a developer and engineer. And so I think I do take a more rational and pragmatic view. I call it a realist view. Some may call it a pessimistic view, of business, where, as kind of the counterpart to the passion, mission driven CEO, I always see that I'm almost kind of like that voice of reason and sometimes a party pooper. I've had to kind of learn my place and learn that balance to say, hey, it can't just all be about the numbers. We got to be able, because that can kill a good risk. Sometimes if you believe something, you can make it happen, right? With a little bit of luck and perseverance and execution and so on. But I kind of joke, I got my MBA in entrepreneurship, and I like to say I got a degree in pessimism. Right? I know every which way to slice up a business and tell you why it isn't going to work, and yet they do sometimes, right? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I've never been good at picking winners, right? Picking horses, and so I really just pick people, pick co-founders that have that balance between, they believe something, they have conviction, they can see something that isn't there, but they're also grounded in reality and really understand the business model. They understand, cash flow, and those sorts of things that can actually build a strong business. So this is interesting. So you're managing this, this portfolio of startups. So what exactly is it you do here? What is your role in these companies?
Yeah, it's good. That's a good question. So I oversee sales, marketing, customer success, and product. So anything that touches the customer, and then my co-founder and my partner does more of the ops. He looks over technology. So we have like a CTO or a VP of engineering or some high-level manager that's a developer for every company. But he kind of oversees that whole group, like meets with them regularly, just make sure like we've got the right path going forward for that group. So he's more of the how things get done. I'm more of the why and what to do, right? And then anything customer facing. I have a very specific way I like to communicate with customers, and like approach that I think helps marketing, because like these days your product is the marketing, the engagement with your product, there's marketing there. And so that's a lot of, I want to like look at all the workflows and like UX UI, because there's a lot of value to be had there. But also it's easy to mess up too. But yeah, so that's what I do now. Like, I'm, fast forward 8 years running Mailshake. Yeah, I oversee, like, I have 3 direct reports, right? It's 4 direct reports, very straightforward. 5-6 years ago, I was in the weeds in a lot of these things. I still produce content. That's the only area I'd say I'm like hands-on in the weeds on, just because that's an area where I have a lot of deep expertise. I've been doing it for a long time. But everything else, I'm kind of not hands-off, but like at this point, I am no longer the expert. Somebody smarter than me or more experienced is working on it that, I will be checking in on. So we use EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, from this book called Traction to run our companies. So I know what's going on. We have scorecards and like metrics we track weekly, stuff that we track monthly. I have like one-on-ones with, the folks that report to me. And then I join various team meetings. And that gives me all the information I need. Now, during those meetings, I'm listening. I'm trying to ask questions, understand. And then they will be like, oh, what happened here? Okay, let's go dig into this problem. Like it's more of like, because I'm not in the weeds on this, it helps me have a better perspective on what to do.
Yeah. So okay, I want to break apart a couple things there. So you talk about kind of owning customer facing, and you have a lot of experience around that. So what are some of the principles that you have, or your kind of non-negotiables, or some of the value that you think you bring to the company in terms of customer engagement?
Yeah. So a couple things. I think first and foremost, I'd say for the longest time, I've been working on my personal brand. I think like 2011, 2012. So quite some time now. I've created content and published content almost every single publication out there, and you can open a lot of doors there. But I've done this for so long. I know how to create content engines that can drive traffic over time, build a brand, really build like an email list, audience, like all that stuff through good content, being that, and again, traffic and then customers. And then through my prior experiences, I worked a lot in the self-service B2B space. So a lot of like, you sign up for something and you just go through it by yourself. I've done so much conversion testing and all sorts of optimization that, I have a really good eye, I'd say, for like a good user experience, like a workflow or UI that just help making sure it's easy to use, like self-explanatory, which sounds like, oh, really easy, but oh my God, like you can change a button color or position of stuff, and it's very confusing. Sometimes the simplest things make things very, very difficult or confusing, even just a few words or placement of words or length of dialogue copy, right? Which is really boring stuff. And then just the ability to kind of hire and build out sales teams. So those are kind of that's like my high level playbook. What we do when we buy a company is we go make sure we build a content engine. We implement sales. We really look at focus on the product to see where we can make improvements and reduce clicks and dots and timing on screens.
Yeah. So that part was my line of work for a long time, and I actually do all the UX workflow mapping and all the boxes and lines and diamonds and stuff, and it ends up looking like this tangled mess. And I say, we have to prune the bush, right? So I'm looking at, well, where's the value? Where's the aha moment? Okay, it's over here, and I kind of circle that in like red or gold or whatever. Okay, and then here's the starting point, and it's a maze. Where do they get lost, and how do they navigate? And so then how do we prune the bushes to have the simplest, most straightforward line from start to finish? And then actually, can we condense or can we eliminate steps in between to accelerate, that time to value? So that's a really, really important skill, and I think very overlooked in a lot of startup founders. So good for you to have that, that real sort of analytical, scientific view of the user experience.
Yeah, thanks.
And so then you talk about personal brand. So in fact, that's how I found you, because you obviously have a strong public presence, social media presence, and I think a lot of founders miss this opportunity that there is a kind of CEO or a kind of founder that is maybe somewhat of a celebrity, right? And that people come to that company or choose that product, not necessarily for the product features, but for the leadership, right? Or for the whatever the personal brand is of that CEO. So what are your thoughts and your principles when you're putting that content out there and how it reflects on your businesses?
Yeah, so building a personal brand and was really the difference that helped me actually launch companies successfully. Because when I started building my personal brand, when I thought of like, what can I do to help launch these businesses? Well, like nobody cares about business, and like, how do you get the first 100 customers? Having a personal brand and email list really is a strategic advantage. I've got about 50,000 subscribers to my newsletter. Most of that came in from an ebook I launched on growth hacking in 2014, 15. At that time, it was growing. That topic was growing fast. Now it's probably like a fad and frowned upon.
I remember 2015 where my CMO comes and growth hack. We have to do growth hacking.
Yeah,
what?
Exactly.
But then I actually adopted that into product. And so I have the same thing with the growth hacking experiments, and we do it on product tweaking and A/B testing, cohort analysis.
It's powerful.
Incredibly.
But obviously with something like that powerful, people can overemphasize how easy it is to use, which is really what kind of probably killed that topic. It was like, oh, you can't just like put in all these 6 minutes of this, that, the other, and it's golden. But anyways, so launched the email list, launched the ebook, built the email list. One, I was just continuing to create content. I was like, oh, P.S., here's what I'm working on. Oh, like here's what I just did here. Here's me now doing growth hack experiments at my company, at Mailshake. And during that time, I was able to really create a framework, and I shared a lot of the stuff of how to grow companies and launch them, get off the ground, what have you. And because I had a personal brand, I wrote for many publications like HubSpot to like Forbes to Inc. I was able to talk about what I'm doing, aka at Mailshake, and get a mention at Forbes. Also drive some traffic, right? And so a lot of this was, if it wasn't for those initial jolts of traffic and mentions, we wouldn't have got our first customers and be here. It would be another failed project. And it is also my golden parachute. If all else fails, I could, get some consulting, start something new. I could have people who know who I am. Maybe they will add the failed at XYZ, but I'm going to try again,
Yeah. No, that's incredible. I love this idea of sort of just like building in public, right? It doesn't have to be, you're not marketing and selling. You're just saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm going through this journey, building this company, applying these principles or this growth hacking framework. Isn't that cool? Oh, by the way, this is what I'm working on. And you're attracting customers, you're attracting talent, probably attracting, investment. And
there's one thing to add there though. It's very different of like building in public and what I'm doing than being fully transparent as a company. I know like Buffer does like a lot. They're very big in the transparency of like everyone's salaries, their churn rate. No, I do not share any information unless it helps us. It is our marketing. It is a marketing tactic. Share stuff that you're doing that's good. I'm not going to share my churn numbers. I'm not going to share like any of my financials, like my employee salaries. Like, I think that's probably taking it to like a little bit, too far. I kind of stay right in the middle, and I share what's helpful and relevant, and again helpful to us, and as well as the person reading it. But I'm not trying to be transparent about all the little things about our business. Just doesn't help us. It only helps our competitors.
So what advice would you give to other founders, other CEOs that are interested in building a personal brand and doing it effectively?
Yeah, I'd say, in 2023 where everything is crowded, start on a channel where your audience lives. So, if I were to do this all over again, let's say I'm building Mailshake, it hasn't come out yet. Mailshake targets sales teams. Where do they live? Ain't a blog, it's LinkedIn. They're on LinkedIn. So create a brand on LinkedIn, create a persona. And that was a mistake we made. We created this like massive traffic on our blog, but our customer lived on LinkedIn. And so like, we don't even need as much of an impact. So anyways, I would recommend starting on a platform where your customers are and or could be, right? So if you're B2C, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, great. If you're B2B, TikTok will most likely be a complete waste of time. You will feel good for doing stuff, but I've got lots of, lot of friends and clients and whatnot that have like tried this and not been successful. Now, if you're selling something, if you're an e-commerce product, it's the exact opposite of advice, right? So live and then be consistent, create content regularly, optimize, think about, try new things, optimize regularly, and go find like the top 5 to 10 like influencers in that category. So like, again, LinkedIn sales. Okay. So good thing is LinkedIn creates this article or like public, like PDF or something every year of like top X sales influencers, right? On LinkedIn. Cool. I just study what they're all doing, and then I come up with a bunch of ideas of what I could, mimic. I find like a great way to kind of get success is mimic successful people in their habits and what they're doing and how they're doing it, what they're saying. Now, you have to believe it, and you can't just it has to be authentic. So use that for a bunch of inspiration and ideas, and then figure out what you can do, but be consistent. It works. It might take a year or two. And I would say like, if you're going to build your personal brand, it's measured in years, decades, right? It took me about 18 months to build my personal brand before any ROI came in. Then all of a sudden, like I get introductions, and there's a cascading effect, invited to be on podcasts. The first 5-10 podcasts as I was on, I had to freaking beg. Like I'm almost like knocking on doors, right? Whatever, like right before knocking on doors is, it's that. I was like begging my friends who are on podcasts, like, dude, give me an intro to this person. I will crush it for them. Here's what I'm going to talk about, do all this research. Fast forward 12 years, I don't do much or actually anything to get on podcasts. They come to me now, but that's earned, right? You don't just get it. But yeah. And then one other thing I would do again differently, or a recommendation for folks that are just starting out, carve out time every week. If you suck at writing, don't write, talk, right? Record yourself, transcribe it, get it out there, get someone else to do the stuff you suck at. A lot of times people like naturally think, oh, if I'm not good at it, I should go like take a copywriting course. No, your value prop or value add is your story, your journey, your experience, not how good you phrase a sentence or a paragraph. Like I suck at grammar. If you see my unedited stuff, even after it's transcribed, because I say it, I talk through my blog posts and stuff, it's bad, but that's okay. It's like, you don't need to be great on the unfiltered stuff. That's why you hire an editor, and then boom. So I used to spend like 3-4 hours on every single article. Now I spend maybe 15 to 25 minutes max. And it's really, what are the 7-8 things I'm going to add value to? Maybe I do some research right before, like data. Like, let's say I want to say like, I want to talk about A/B testing or conversion rate optimization. I'm going to talk about 4 things that I've done. Well, yes, I'm going to mention those 4 things, but the screenshots, the stats, the data of why this is powerful, I've got an admin doing that afterwards, right? I'm only doing the high leverage stuff.
Yeah. So and you talk about kind of having a content engine. I think consistency is the hardest thing here, especially as a founder who's so busy trying to build a product, where to, carve out time and see the value in doing that. It has to be super efficient, right? So, I think you're touching on it a little bit here, but for somebody who's kind of just starting out, what do you think are like the biggest leverage things they can do to build a content engine?
Yeah, start with building. Just start, period.
Love
Just start. You're going to suck so bad. I mean, I don't know. You should see my first version of my ebook. I left accidentally lorem ipsum content in in the first 10 pages. And then the cover was horrible because I like designed it myself on like PowerPoint, right? But it's so embarrassingly bad. Like it's so bad that I am proud of how bad it is. Like, people bought this. This is horrible. And like I wrote my co-author and I wrote the whole damn thing. We reviewed it like 100,000 times. You would think we'd catch lorem ipsum concept, but we didn't, right? So anyways, start. You're gonna create YouTube shorts. Get started. Time yourself. Get better. Practice makes perfect. And then I'd say build a team around your weaknesses. And it doesn't have to be full-time people. A lot of my team now consists of what people I've hired on Upwork. Now we've got like full-time people because we create a whole lot of content. I mean, we create like, I think like 10 to 15 videos, maybe 20 videos a month. We have 2 podcasts. I create like, I don't know, 10 pieces of content a month. So there's a bunch of content being created. I've got another content like team producing another like guides, ebooks. So we're creating like almost like 50 to 75 pieces of content a month. I need full-time people. But if you're creating 3, 4, 5, start with 1 a week. You need somebody to edit your stuff. And the cool thing is you can use chat. What would a podcast in 2023 be if you didn't mention AI, right? So you can use ChatGPT to edit your stuff. Like, hey, edit this for 8th grade English, right? Add in stats that back this up. And then I use like Canva and folks that like can create images for me off of Upworker. So and then you can also hire video editors. If you have a short, you want somebody to edit that short before it goes out, right? And the last piece here is I prefer to create long form content. My favorite form is like a video interview. Like a podcast like this would be perfect because you could take this podcast, 45 minutes long, we could turn it into 20 videos, small, short videos that then promote this podcast. We could transcribe it and not like, here's this interview with Sujan Patel, blah, 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 but like, hey, 7 ways to build your personal brand. Boom, right? Like, so you could create one video can create multiple pieces of content. What I do is I just think about what kind of, my job is to be the brains of like the content piece, right? Like, okay, here's I heard this. We should create something here. Here's a short video. Here's a short video. Here's a blog post topic. There are people who are going to do and take all that and run with it, right? That you should never do unless you're like 0 customers, eating ramen.
We're going to do that, right? We're going to chop this thing up. So
Perfect,
give me a clip. Tell me top 5 ways to build a personal brand as a founder.
All right, top 5 things you can do, like 15 minutes a week, okay? Create YouTube shorts. Repurpose those YouTube shorts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, Instagram, right? All of them. Your brand, you as a person. And then you can talk about your company. So don't talk about your company. So that's number 1. Number 2 is repurpose your content. Instead of creating, and number 3 is instead of creating YouTube shorts, interview people, right? Like this. There's always somebody in your industry that you can, as an influencer, as an audience, go ask them questions. Make it easy for them. Take that video content, turn it into podcasts, turn it into shorts, turn it into a blog post. Build your email list. So you need something to build your email list, like an ebook, a guide, something. A tool is great too. So like a calculator is fantastic, right? Stuff like that. Think of HubSpot's website grader back in the day. Create something like that. And then number 5, be consistent. You're not going to get ROI. Let's just say it's a sunk cost. You just need to do it to live.
Mm-hmm.
You won't. If you don't do this, you're not going to live. Just keep going. It'll work.
It's fantastic. All right, we're going to see that. See that
there you
on
go.
YouTube
Live.
short coming to you.
There you go.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, obviously I'm living the same life here. I launched this podcast last year And it's been that journey of creating the engine around it, building the team around it, that sort of thing. And it actually made me realize so much about myself, that I perform better, I think better, and I can be more consistent if I'm recording video as opposed to writing. But just like you said, I think it used to take me closer to like 6 to 8 hours to write a blog post. And I would put so much of myself into it. I'd be doing all the research, making sure that all the images were just right and everything. And it would just be this huge thing. And at best, I could do maybe one of them a month, right?
Yeah.
But then now, an interview like this can give me a couple weeks worth of content. Or if there's usually so what I do as an executive coach is every week I have a couple points where, like, when my kind of coaching sessions are done for the week, I have a little block of time where I just reflect on my lessons learned for the week. And I literally just sit here and talk on video for 15 minutes about something like some pattern that's come up or some big challenge that we had recently or some breakthrough that we had. And then exactly, I take the transcription of that and I put it into ChatGPT and I say, turn this into a tweet thread, turn it into an email newsletter, turn it into a LinkedIn post, turn it into a blog post. And then, I get a bunch of that stuff and then I got to go back and tweak it. And I might say, simplify it, do it again because you're hallucinating, what have you. And then I'll kind of go through and put the final human touch on it. But then again, now I just turned a 15-minute video into at least 5 different pieces of content within maybe a half an hour or so. And then I just send it off to my team and that will drip out over the next 2 weeks. So 15 minutes has created 2 weeks worth of content on something super relevant.
Yeah, exactly. It's super high leverage. One additional thing I'd say, here's number 6, and this is the most important part. I'm going to give you a lot of froth here for your video. Bonus factor. No, but seriously, this is the biggest thing everybody misses. I talked about creating content and being consistent. What I didn't talk about, which is the real thing, is the content promotion. Most people focus too much time on the content creation, but not enough time on the promotion. So like you said, you spend 8 hours on a blog post, then you're freaking tired. And you got actual business to run, you got to do other stuff. And then you just put it out there and what do you think? You expect people to come, right? That doesn't happen. We spend 60-70% of our efforts on the promotion of it. I will not create a content piece unless I have a way to distribute it or promote it. Meaning, if you write the best blog post in the world and that is your first blog post, chances are no one's going to see it. That's why start with shorts or start with some small things where you can build momentum in an audience and then push the big stuff. But really, think about content promotion. How are you going to get the word out? If you just Google 100 content promotion ideas, Sujan Patel, you'll see my stuff. Just look at all those. This article was written in 2017. I've updated maybe 3 or 4 times. It's I still use that same exact playbook. There might be TikTok or some new channels, but it's the same shit. Same exact thing for the last 5 years.
I'm doing it right now. Got it. I'm going to use this. That's phenomenal. So it's funny too, because as a product guy, I see a lot of similarities to this as well. Many founders, we focus so much on building the product, and we have that if we build it, they will come mentality. And then we say, well, how do we go to market? What channels do we do? And everyone just thinks, well, we'll just buy ads, but that's incredibly inefficient, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And even then, right, there's the whole retargeting and building trust and whatnot. So even with content, so with this podcast, for example, nobody is going to see this video, the full length video and say, I'm ready to invest 45 minutes with Eric and Sujan. Now, maybe if they know you, because you've already built the brand, right? But a stranger isn't going to come and see me and be willing to give me 45 minutes. But if we give them a good short, we give them a taste, they say, wow, that short was really great. I'm going to dive in for the whole thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's exactly. So this is a lot of this is just in marketing in 2023, it requires you to have multiple touches. They say old study, 8 touches, I'd say it's probably close to 20, 30 these days, but you can get those 20, 30 in way quicker, right? You can get them in, if you're on multiple channels, with AI, with a lot of the personalization in advertising. I mean, you're going to, in algorithms for every single platform, you see your video, you see the 15 seconds, 30-second version, you bet you're going to see 5 of the videos in the recommendations. And then you watch one of them, even 15 seconds, you're going to get like 5 more. And you're going to be like, your preferences are going to go up. Like I watched the Gary Vee video once. All right. And then I was like, I became Gary Vee's biggest freaking fan. Not because I like Googled, it was not anything outside of the one time I did something, search for something. Everything else was just, it came to me on ads and everywhere else. And so that's how you can get those 20, 30, 50 touches. And then all of a sudden I watch Eric's video and like, I got to hire this guy, a coach. He's giving me so much information. I haven't even asked for it. It just came to me magically, right? What does he have to give me if I actually pay the guy, right? Like boom, 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 purchase.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's kind of the strategy, right? There's this sort of long tail relationship building that happens here in the internet and the ether. But we're in this attention economy where if I can just snag 3 seconds of your attention, 15 seconds of your attention, okay, now we can start to build a relationship and I can start to really provide value. And then once you trust me enough to download one of my tools or my scorecards and get onto my email list, well, now I'm really starting to give you value every week, personal things, stories and tools and whatnot that I'm providing to people in my inner circle, so to speak. And then, when I have a startup accelerator. So when I open up a cohort for that accelerator, everybody who's ready to buy, ready to jump in is primed and ready to go. And day one, when I meet them in person, it's like we've known each other for a long time. And that's really great because I love, I love helping friends. I hate selling people. So it's really convenient. Yeah. It's funny too, though, because as when you were talking about that with Gary Vee, I also thought about it on kind of the flip side where there are some negative personalities out there who are really good at gaming these algorithms where you might watch something out of like maybe curiosity or maybe even disgust. And then all of a sudden you're tucked into their algorithm and now you're starting to see all their stuff all the time. Like, what do I say? How do I stop seeing these people? So that's the power. That's the power of personal branding.
Exactly. And you drop in your company and then you start to mention it more and more and more, and that becomes a thing, and boom. Again, consistency is the key here. It's going to go, it's always bad. Do me a favor, like go look at Eric's first podcast. Anyone watching that's like a true fan, go listen and watch his first one. It's going to be like, okay at best, right? No offense. I haven't seen it, but
yeah. That's what's right. You know what? It was full of heart. It was full of heart.
All in.
I was doing everything myself with like shitty lighting in my basement living room, but it was full of heart. Well, Sujan, it was so great talking with you today. This was a great experience. I learned a lot, and I know our audience learned a lot about how to build a strong portfolio of companies, how to be a rational CEO, and how to build a personal brand that will help leverage your current business and future businesses in your career. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Awesome, man. Take care.